Hi all. I bet everybody's just about ready to start writing their report, so I thought I would create a presentation to actually talk about what you need to put in the parts. I have a detailed assignment sheet as well as there's an excellent example of a recommendation report in your textbook starting on page 520. So I'll be referring to that because some of the parts would just be better to follow the template provided in the book. Here's the assignment sheet, so let's just cover the parts basically. As you know, this is a pretty lengthy assignment, and I know you guys are kind of panicking about that, but I think when you take into consideration that each of these parts takes at least a page, I think it will make you feel a little bit better. All right, so first of all, the cover page and the example in the book's on page 520. I would just follow the template that they've provided. You need to have, obviously, a title for your report, as well as the names of the people that are in your group. You don't absolutely have to create a logo that like they have down at the bottom. I don't expect that. The second part will be the abstract, and an abstract basically summarizes in concise sentences the bulk of your report. I know it's going to sound like a lot of these parts in this report are repetitive, but it's important to learn each part. So for the abstract, what you want to do is really make this concise. If you can make it under 200 words or around 200, 250 words, that's perfect. Don't forget to title it, to explain a little bit about the purpose of the study, the methods, the recommendation that you're going to make in the end. I would write the abstract, probably the abstract and the table of contents, one of the last things I would make, because otherwise you're going to keep editing it and changing it. The table of contents will help somebody maneuver through your document. The example on 522 is excellent. Make sure everything lines up on the left margin. Make sure that the numbers all line up. There's a way that you can do this in Word that makes it really easy. Okay, next we have the introduction. The introduction, I think, should be at least a page long. A lot of you wrote excellent introductions in your proposal memo. Absolutely use what you've had from before. You don't need to recreate everything. Part of the reason I had you do that was that you had something to work with already. So in the introduction, one, describe the background of the report. Imagine that your audience is somebody that doesn't know. Let's say you're doing your study on something about UAA. Talk about the history of UAA and how your problem came to be. After describing the background, describe the research that you did, the kind of methods you used. If you want in the introduction, you can even show some of the findings. I'm requiring that you use some sources in your background, in your introduction. Not only does this make you a little bit more credible, especially if you're noticing that there's a problem, obviously there's somebody else that notices there's a problem too, makes you just a little bit more credible. Also, you can use the sources for your background research. The next part will be your research methods, and the research methods and the results are going to be the huge portion of your document. The research methods, also some of you put this in your proposal memo, use it again. I would list like they do in the book. So each of the things that you found were troublesome, that you realized that you needed to research, explain it a little bit. And in this part, you're just saying what it is that you were going to do to, what you want to do to figure out the problem. And the results will be exactly follow the same order of what you did in the research methods. In this results section is where I would use my graphic representations. Now you're going to have to find where they're going to fit best. We have the conclusion. Recommendation is exactly after you've done all this research, what would you recommend about the feasibility of your project? If you decide that something's not feasible, perhaps you have some recommendation to where this project could go through if something happened. If there was more public interest, if there was more money available from taxpayers, something like that. Your references, some of you have a really great start with that with your annotated bib. Make sure you put these in alphabetical order. And then your appendices will be where you'll put your questionnaire and any other documents that you referenced throughout your paper. If you used a map, I know some of you are using a map, so this would be a great place for it to fit. So incorporating your primary research will be like your questionnaire. Some of you have done interviews. You can incorporate that all throughout. Most likely you'll use your questionnaire. in your results section, showing that when you went to go study this, here's what you found. Use different graphic representations to show this. Don't forget to introduce your graphs. Underneath it, you need to label it as figure 1 or figure number 2. And you also need to describe your graphic. So don't just shove it in your paper. Before you actually put that graph in there, you should have a paragraph before it explaining what the graph is doing. Once you have inserted your graphic, you can refer back to it, but don't refer to a graphic if you haven't already put it in the document. You don't want to make somebody go forward unless it's in the appendices. That's fine. But if you're planning on putting it on page 4, don't reference it in page 2. Incorporating secondary research, I believe you'll do all throughout your paper. In your introduction, like I said, you can use it to kind of bulk up your credibility, to use as background. Research methods, you might find that that other people have done similar studies, and you could base their research there. The results section, conclusion, recommendation, if you need, you can add a little bit more there. And don't forget to include all of your references in the reference page. In the body of the report, I quickly want to look at the research methods. Like I said before, think back to what you had listed as your proposed task in your proposal memo. Make this very detailed. The person reading your report has not been with you there step by step by step. Make it as detailed as possible. Describe the background in determining the research options as well. So kind of how did you come up with that these were the issues that you needed to research. Make sure to reference any sources that you might have used along the way. In the results section, this is really important that you follow the numbers that you did in the research methods. So essentially, in the research methods, if number 1 said we investigated the number of commuters from Wasilla to Anchorage, then number 1 in the results section should describe what you found about the number of commuters from Wasilla to Anchorage. Include your primary research results where appropriate, like I said before, and secondary research where needed.